Welcome to the Tempo Storm Deck Spotlight series, featuring Handlock. Handlock is an archetype players may remember from the old days of Hearthstone. Handlock is a form of control warlock that aims to stall out the game using removal and then tries to close it out using its large threats, such as Mountain Giant or the demons from Lord Jaraxxus. With both the rotation of old sets and the new expansion happening at the same time, the overall power level of decks has significantly dropped. This is due to having a smaller card pool available, lowering the strength of cards in general. Thanks to this, there's room for new archetypes to show up and old archetypes to return. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel in order to stay up to date with all of our Hearthstone content. As it's the early days of the expansion, it's important to remember that the decks that are good now possibly won't see play a few weeks from today. With that in mind, let's jump right into a breakdown of Handlock's game plans. Handlock is an extremely versatile deck, in the sense that it can play the control role or become the aggressor when needed. Its game plan can change based on its hand and matchup, and often allows players to find a win in any spot that they may find themselves in. In a lot of matchups that you're favored in, you can find a win by having a giant go uncontested. Many decks will simply succumb to the pressure, allowing you to beat them down. Aggressive decks are by far the most straightforward of matchups, as your goal is to simply stay alive. Handlock has a lot of tools to help you with this, as the deck's main purpose is to live. In the mulligan, you should look for removal spells and Doomsayer in order to stave off early turns of pressure. If an aggro deck can't build a board in the earlier stages of the game, they'll often fall short of the damage needed to kill off their opponent later in the game. Even decks such as Pirate Rogue can struggle to compete with the large taunts and healing that Handlock has access to. If the Rogue wishes to win this matchup, they need to run saps, which aren't core cards as of yet. After the early turns of the game, continue to remove your opponent's board as frequently as you can, but also aim to develop your own minions. Aggro decks will typically ignore large bodies such as Mountain Giant, allowing you to safely taunt them up, blocking further damage from coming in. Make sure to be cautious of how you use your removal in these matchups though, as sometimes you'll find yourself falling short if you use them too liberally. Against slower control decks, you have to become the one beating down your opponent. Mulligan for your threats and use them to apply as much pressure as you can. Be wary of what removal is in your opponent's arsenal though, as playing into it gives them an easy way to stall out the game. If your opponent manages to live long enough to get through your minions, your game plan should transition to one focused on using Lord Jaraxxus to apply endless pressure. Using Jaraxxus' hero power, you should have more than enough threats to beat any control deck. One thing that can be game-deciding against these decks is how you use your removal spells. Oftentimes, you'll struggle to find a good spot to play these cards, so you should look to take any opportunity that you can, as long as it doesn't prevent you from making a powerful play. It's better not to greed value out of your spells in this scenario, as getting them stuck in hand can be troublesome. Combo decks can be problematic for Handlock, as they often have a wide arsenal of stall spells and then close out the game using Burst. While there haven't been many successful combo decks as of yet, Ladder has definitely seen its fair share of Malygos decks. Malygos Hunter, for example, seems to be doing surprisingly well and can be troublesome for the Warlock to beat. Due to the Hunter not really running any minions aside from their combo, your control tools are virtually useless. It's extremely important to apply as much pressure as you can each turn against combo decks. Look to mulligan for your threats and use them to beat down your opponent as fast as you can. If they manage to assemble their combo, you're likely dead. So you just have to try and be faster than them. It's hard to properly tech for the meta, as the popular decks shift around immensely every hour, but you should be looking to make changes to your list based on the general archetypes you're encountering. Against aggressive decks, you can look to add another copy of Sun Fury Protector or a Defender of Argus in order to turn your threats into survival tools. If you're exclusively seeing aggro decks, consider cutting a copy of Twisting Nether, as it can often be too slow. Against combo decks, you should look to add Combo Disruption, as it can instantly win you the game. Remove both copies of Traveling Healer in favor of 2 Hecklebots. This will help you prevent your opponent from locking you out of the game. As the meta continues to develop, some decks will rise in power and others will fall. It's impossible to predict which decks will remain good, but Handlock seems to have the potential to stay around. We hope you enjoyed our first deck introduction from Rise of Shadows. Let us know in the comments what decks you've been experimenting with so far. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with our Hearthstone content in the new year.